All right, all right. Welcome, everybody. This has been something that I have really looked forward to. Like, I was excited to get on here with you guys and just see your faces and connect with y'all, learn from one another. And I just feel like this is such a beautiful group of women. And I'm just thankful that you're showing up and you're sharing, and we're just building this community and culture with one another. It's very, very joy-giving to me, and I'm excited about it. So look at all y'all. Thank you for your commitment and spending your time here. So real quickly, Jordan is going to lead us through these two chapters. She so graciously volunteered to do that a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm excited about that. And there's a lot of good meat here. I specifically love chapter 5. And so I hope we have some good time to dive in. But real quickly, I wanted to let y'all know that we are going to be starting this book study. So if you want to mark it on your calendars, May 5th. And we're going to cover, it's 12 chapters. It's actually an easy read. See, it's not that thick. I got it off of Amazon and it came in 2 days. I've already started reading it. There's some really good content in this. And this was recommended to me by another Diamond who went through it with her team. And just in chatting with her about it, I thought, I feel like there's a lot of goodness here that is just going to be good for no matter what rank you are, honestly. So I know I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but one thing I've always said is that, no matter if you are a silver or a ruby, whatever it is, you're a leader. And I take that statement back because I've realized that that's not actually truth. The truth is you have the potential to be a leader. You have a responsibility to the people that you've brought on to become a leader, to influence them, to bring value to them. But you're not just naturally a leader. You have to work on it. You have to grow your skill set. It's a fun thing to grow in, but it is something that you have to grow in. You're not just, a rank doesn't mean you're a leader, right? And I think we're learning that through this study. It's about the value you offer, the inspiration, the motivation, the connection. So I'm excited to do this book. We're going to do 2 chapters a week. Like I said, it's an easy read. And that's going to be every Friday at 12:30 Central Time. And it will end the Friday before convention. So when we go into convention, we'll have completed this study. And then there will probably be another book study to look forward to after convention. So Carissa Casey, it's The Self-Aware Leader by John Maxwell. Super good. There will be more information about that to come. Jordan and Megan Goff are partnering in that with me. And so you'll get to hear from a variety of leaders in this study, but it's something I wanted y'all to know of right now so that if you want to involve your teams, I hope you do. If you don't already have something going on for May, this would just be something to start telling your leaders about and get excited about. So, all right, just wanted to shout that out. More information probably to come this evening or early tomorrow morning. Carissa Casey, it's starting on May 5th. So Friday, May 5th, every Friday until it ends a week before convention starts.
And I can drop the typed up stuff. I just haven't had time to make a graphic. Anybody else in a crazy, it is a busy season of life right now. Anybody else in a busy season of life? Like I'm actively having to practice things that are eliminating overwhelm and still getting my priorities done, and making a graphic for this book study has not made the top of the list. So that's where we're at. Are we going to start, Tamara?
We can take that off your plate and I can get that done.
It's okay. I can ask one of my really great, I can go call out somebody who has that strength on my team.
There you go.
And they can go do that.
Yes.
Jen, I was probably going to be Jen Taylor. Okay, I have a question for y'all because this was actually a conversation Taylor and I had this week, and I don't know what y'all's thoughts are because it has to do with the strength zone, which is that chapter 5 that we were talking about, which I really resonated more with chapter 5 than I did with the chapter 4 one. But my question to y'all is, we were doing a sample group. And I said, and Taylor was like, sure, I will run the sample group this month. And I was like, praise Jesus. I have been running these suckers for 6 years. I am so excited to hand that to somebody to run this month. and she was like, okay, I'll do it. And then like halfway through, she was like, I don't remember exactly what it was, Taylor. So I'm going to botch this story a little bit. You can totally correct me, but basically the gist of it was, she was like, why am I running this? This is not a strength zone of mine. This is not something that brings me joy. Like, I'm not saying you need to run it, but I'm also like, I know that you could bust this out in 5 minutes. So like, why am I running it? Was basically the conversation. And I just basically said, hey, Taylor, this is not a strength zone of mine. This is not something I enjoy. It is a management task that I have just had to check off for 6 years. So my question to y'all is, because I was reading and it kept talking, or I was listening, it kept talking about make sure they're living in their strength zone, make sure they're doing their same things in their strength zone. But would y'all agree that we are constantly doing things outside of our strength zone too? Like, can y'all just tell me y'all's thoughts on that? Am I right on that? But we just tell me what y'all's thoughts are. Because after I said that to her, I was like, I think that's the right thing I was supposed to say as leader. Maybe, possibly.
Does anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah,
Well, I
my
definitely-
strength, sorry.
No, go ahead, Sarah, go.
My strength is not product knowledge. It is not. Like, I am not the girls. It's like, oh, is that one gluten-free? Or what if they have COPD? Which slim should they begin with? No, that isn't, I do not know. I don't. I have no clue. So I have other people on my team. They know those things. I'm going to let them lead in that. They can teach us, and it rises them up, because that's not, I just don't, it's not my strength.
Yeah. And Whitney said, definitely just checking off boxes that feel necessary. And I just wanted, like, in my head, I was like, okay, I just want to make sure everyone knows that as you're listening to this, like, there are things you're going to do that are outside of your strength zone. You are going to do things that are not like your favorite. You're going to do these other things, but as long as, and this is what I took away from it, as long as you are making sure to get in those things that are your strengths, that are fun, that do like light you on fire, those other hard things, those things that are necessary, we can't avoid them. They're there. They are part of the 4 pillars of leadership. We got to do them, but they make them way less sucky. Does that make sense? And so as I was listening to that, I was just thinking like, okay. And then that conversation with Taylor popped up. So anybody else have something on that before I go on?
I
to my first
do.
question? Yeah, come on.
I mean, almost everything we do in this business, we start off bad at. So if you're defining your strength zone by stuff that you are good at, well, you're going to discover a lot of strengths as you stretch yourself and try things. I was not strong in making training videos. My first training videos are hilariously like Ben Stein, like, and so that, and then I also think of just like the church body, like every week you need someone up there leading worship, preaching a message, and like serving communion, right? And like some weeks those jobs just need to be done, even if, or, leading a prayer, like even if that's not your strength zone. I think as a leader, you're called to serve, you're called to lead and serve. And we can always be evaluating where we can delegate or where we can put someone in a position that is their strength. If something isn't our strength, like you're always looking for ways to do that. But ultimately, like the buck stops at you as the leader. So if someone hasn't risen, if someone hasn't risen up that's fitted for that role, then you step up and serve because you're the leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I like that.
Somebody
And
else had something too that
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
Similar to what Krista just said, but kind of like, just because it's not your strength, I guess, as a leader, it doesn't mean that like you're not going to do it, or you can't do it, or it's not necessary to do it. So I think that is actually something really awesome to model, because you need to model that for your team, that like, even if it's not something that you want to do or something that you're not good at, like you can still go do it. And then you are actually going to be better at delegating it because you know the ins and outs of it, And so I'm the same, like Sarah, about like product knowledge, like is not like, no, don't come at me with ingredients or whatever. Like, I don't know. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go find it, or that doesn't mean that I don't know where to find it, or that doesn't mean that, like, when I have a customer that's going through it, that I'm not going to like get in there and try to understand it, so that at least I can support in that way, you know? And the same thing with like leadership things. I just think that until you're kind of in there, you don't really realize the strengths that you need to do that well anyway. And so then you can delegate that better and your team, and also model, like, we know what it's like doing this business, and consistency isn't fancy or pretty or always fun, but also like necessary. So I think it's the same thing in leadership.
And what a beautiful thing that we get to model too, because vulnerability in this business, when we share that we are not good at something, but we are making it work, we're figuring it out, we know the way to get the answer, even though we don't just intuitively know the answer. Like, that is a great duplication tool to make people understand that this business is simple. Like, it is simple, and you don't have to be Tamara Holloway to be Diamond. So I love that. What were you going to say, Tamara?
Well, I was just thinking about how sometimes I've been guilty of this in the past, where if something doesn't feel like, I was talking about before we even started recording, if something doesn't feel like a natural strength, have you ever felt yourself avoiding that? And almost like giving yourself an out, like, well, that's not my strength, so I'm just not going to do that. I can't do a live on my team page. I'm not a great speaker, so I'm just not going to do that. And so we find ourselves, yes, there is beauty in working in our strength zone, but that doesn't mean that we can just go, well, that's not my thing, so I am not going to do it. I'm going to avoid it, because we're all capable of learning new skills. Some things are just more natural to us, where I believe we want to like find our core at that we're just like she talks in chapter 5, we find that core and we do it over and over and over again, whether that's, you know, strong connectedness, training, like all these things. But it doesn't mean we lay down the others and just like hope for the best, you know? So I just think too, that awareness of, am I avoiding something? Am I making an excuse about something just because I don't see it necessarily as my strength? So just something to kind of mull over. Is there something I'm avoiding that may not be naturally gifting to me, but I still need to grow in it if there is a need for it for my team?
Okay, and I want to hear from you guys on that too, because that was something I had written down, especially, and Carissa, you reminded me of this, because when I grew up in Plexus, when I started figuring out this leadership journey, first off, I was awful. If you went to my jewels on this call, they would tell you that I messed it up big time over and over. Our very first meeting that we had with our jewels was an actual disaster. Like, I walked away and I was crying. I was like, Zach, I don't know how to lead a meeting with leaders. I don't know how to delegate. I don't know how to do any of this. I don't know how to organize a meeting. Like, that is not a gift of mine. Anyway, it was absolutely terrible. But in the framework of training videos, y'all, if I am being honest, I know myself well enough to tell you I am not a good trainer. I am not the girl to lay out a PowerPoint deck, to break it down, to get inside people's heads and think, what do they need, and make this be. And like, I remember growing up on Carissa Casey's videos, like the videos on what to say, like the words to say. I can remember exactly what it's called, but something like that. And I was like, crap, I'm not doing a training video because I cannot do what she does. I can't talk for 40 minutes. Like, there's no way that I can do that. But I remember when Tamara asked me to do a live on her team page. It was the very first time I had like done one ever. And I think I was maybe senior Ruby. And she said, just tell us 1 or 2 things you're doing well. And I was like, oh, I can do that. Like, I can do that. And I kind of found my strength zone through these little tiny lives, finding one little problem that I could go solve for somebody. And that was like 3-minute YouTube videos. That's my strength zone, like 3 minutes, right? Or asking a question to create conversation. But I am not the girl. I am not Emily Burgess, who can take a topic, lay out this beautiful thing, figure out the flow. Like, it's a hot mess. So does anybody else have a story like that? Like what Tamara and Carissa were talking about, that you want to share? that you're tempted to avoid it because it's not a strength zone, but you really just haven't done it enough, or you haven't applied your strength to the task?
Emily, I know you're driving right now, but you shared something with me this morning. I hate to call you out, but something that you had been avoiding for a while and you're stepping into now. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
So I have avoided training my team because I have a really big fear of being a burden and talking too much and not simplifying. And also just like repeating the same thing, because I was actually telling my husband today, what we do is simple. And so I feel like I'm saying the same dang thing over and over and over. And surely that's a burden. Surely my people are leaving calls, training and coaching. Surely they're leaving calls just feeling like they didn't get anything out of it because I'm saying the same thing that I've said for 6.5 years. So I've told myself that. So I've avoided doing intentional training with my team, and I've avoided doing coaching calls with my team. And I hosted a level 1 retreat this last October, and I actually left the retreat feeling incredibly discouraged because I was like, oh, wow, my leaders actually don't, like my level 1 leaders are really struggling. And what I felt like they probably should know, because I've been telling them day in and day out, they actually don't know. So I think that was a rude awakening for me of like, okay, I might think that I'm saying these things all the time. I might think that I'm sharing trainings from other people and assume that they're watching them, but they're not. And so if I want my team to grow, if I want my team to feel confident in what they're doing, I can't like rely on anybody else. Like I just need to go ahead and do it. And so I've been really stepping into leadership training with my team. And then I've started doing coaching, which makes me want to cry because I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but I feel like that's actually been really, really rewarding for me and hopefully for my team.
Let's be real, Emily knows exactly what she's doing, and we would all sign up immediately if Emily opened up a coaching call list to our thread right now. We would all sign up. We all know that. Yes, we would. You shake your head at me. And so, but she's been afraid of that for a long time. I didn't know if you had thoughts, Tamara, before.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, and she and I talked about this, like it's stepping into what we're afraid of, and it's doing it that first couple of times. And then after that, it does get easier. It does get easier. And a lot of times what we're telling ourselves, and I saw a lot of people in here saying, Whitney said, I can relate to that, Taylor. I felt that way before. Those are lies that we are telling ourselves. And so it builds up that avoidance more versus the truth is her team wants to hear from her. Emily's team wants to have a one-on-one coaching with her, which by the way, is so different than them watching a training video you do or being on a Zoom call. Yes, those bring value. Yes, those are connection pieces, but a one-on-one call or one-on-one conversation is vastly different. And you're going to walk away gaining something different, even if you may have heard that before. And y'all, we all know repetition is vital. I mean, I think about myself, how many times I have to reteach myself. I'll think I've accomplished something, and I'm talking more in kind of like mindset. But then I'll have to rework on that because I find myself going right back. It's just like that with anything else in this business. We have to have repetition for it to really take root. And then we start walking in that.
Yes, Whitney.
Tamara, I have a few thoughts here.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I remember doing an exercise years ago that I'm glad that we're having this discussion because it makes me want to do it again. But you take a few weeks and you make a list of every single activity or responsibility that you have as a leader for your team, like, and for your personal business as well. Like every single little task or big task that you can think of, like write it down and then go through the list. And you want to indicate, like you can either eliminate, you can delegate, and I can't remember what the third word, but it probably rhymed and it's probably sounds cool, but it meant pay someone else to do it. So you put an E next to any of those tasks that you could actually eliminate and your business would survive without it. Because a lot of things, I think we just spin our wheels. We think that it's necessary when it's not. put a D next to anything that we could delegate to someone else on our team that would actually be a gift to them to help them shine in their strengths. And then the one where, you pay for it, invest. I don't remember what the word was, but it's amazing how many things, like if you actually go through and you're being like completely real, it's amazing how few things are actually left on that list that only you can do. And then if you're willing to invest and take the time to go through and delegate those things out and hire someone to do the things that, you don't have to actually do yourself, whatever would be successful with that. It's amazing how that puts you in your zone of genius and how that's where you're actually going to thrive and grow the most and allow other people on your team. That can be really eye-opening to who could I delegate this to, who has a gift here, who has a strength here. But I've seen that there's a lot of value in us showing up imperfectly for our team in areas where we don't feel confident. I think it's good for them to see that we still show up and do the things that we don't feel like we're good at. So, yeah.
Okay, I have a question on that. Why don't we, and this is for anyone, why don't we delegate? Why don't we automate? Why don't we start doing these things, asking people, hey, you're really good at this. Would you want to lead this? Why do we not do that? Somebody say control.
For me, it's not control, Jordan. For me, it's that I don't want to put more burden on someone else when I feel like it's something that I benefit from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's more my fear than giving up control. Cause I'm like, once I had a good VA, I was like, can I pay you to do everything? Is that possible? So
yeah,
but it does take some time there is that fear. It is a time investment and a money investment to find someone that can really take those things and do them well, but it's so worth every price once you do, every cost. So
for sure. And there's lots of Brittany, I don't know, you may be feeding a baby or something. I can't really see your face, but if you are able to, can you explain trust? Because that's another one I had written down.
Yeah, I am feeding a baby, but he's happy. So
okay,
yeah,
good.
the trust that someone else kind of mentioned is they'll get it done, and the trust that it'll get done to, the caliber that you either expect of yourself or for your team, and letting go. So I think there's a little bit of a control piece there too, but I think just trusting that, it would be similar to what you would have done.
For sure. And that was part of mine. It was actually a mix of y'all's too. I didn't want to burden anyone. I knew I could get it done quickly. I knew I could get it done well. And that's why I didn't want to burden anyone. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to seem weak, right? Leaders aren't weak. I don't know. Anyway, that was those are the lies I told myself for a long time. And it limited my leaders. They will tell you, especially Taylor being I know you're on, it limited her ability to go lead in her strengths because I was blocking her from doing that because I was just doing all the things all the time. What else? What else can y'all think of? Why else don't we do that? Someone said type A, control. Stacy, do you want to explain control on your end?
Sure. And I think a lot of it comes from being a teacher. And then I had, paraprofessionals working in my classroom as well. And I always just struggled with, are people going to be able to do it? And this is such a stupid thing to say, but, the same way that I do with the same quality. And I saw Carissa say, quality control. And for me, that's it. I have in my mind what I want it to be and what I want it to look like and how I want it done. And I struggle. How about the dishwasher, right? I know how to load the dishwasher. When my husband loads the dishwasher, I want to strangle him because he doesn't load it correctly. And so I'm going to mute because my dogs are barking, but that's for me, it's control and giving up that control. I have hired a VA though, and that's been super helpful to give away some of those parts that I don't like to do myself.
Okay, let's problem solve together really fast. How can we delegate things and still ensure quality? How can we guide our leaders that we are sharing tasks with, that we are sharing the load with, letting them lead in their strength? How can we guide them and not boss them around?
My first thought is kind of like Brittany Howard says, when you're developing leaders, you determine who has leadership potential. So you don't just delegate to anyone. You look for the people who are showing responsibility with what's in their sphere. And I think you start with micro tasks. Obviously, you also try to delegate something that you think they'll be good at. You don't want to set them up. You don't want to set them up for a failure. So you look for what they'll be good at, and you kind of take it in baby steps. Yeah, right. Do it together, show it to them, do it together, have them do it on your own. Which brings me to my other objection. It's just it's a huge time commitment to do that side by side learning with someone and then hand it off. So you're taking the time on the front end in order to take it off your plate in the long game.
Yeah, the I do, you do, we do type thing.
I think for me, the biggest thing is changing my mindset of what if they do it differently? What if they do? And they're probably going to do it differently, but what if the end result is the same or better? And I am a control freak. And so I have to be willing to recognize that they could do it differently. But it could still produce another leader, a better result, the same result, either way. And then I do think doing it together, right? Like, hey, show me how you would attack this, because I realize I've been doing it the same way for so long, and I realize you might have a different idea here, and I want to see what that might look like for you.
Those are great questions. Like, I can just totally see you being like, okay, hey, listen, you are really good at encouraging. This week, would you take our Motivation Monday call? And I would love to hear your perspective on what you might share and how you might do that and what you think our team needs. Like, I love those questions, Ashley. That is so good.
Yeah. And I think that comes into play too, where when the more connected we are to our team, the more connected we are to each of our individual leaders, instead of viewing it like, I mean, I know y'all listed multiple reasons why you wouldn't, why it's hard to do that. But the more we know and the more connected we are, maybe we can view it differently and not think, oh, I'm burdening these people by asking them to make the graphics for the book study, for example. But instead, my gosh, every time they do a graphic for their rank ups, it stops my scroll and I'm just looking at it and thinking, man, that is some good stuff right there, right? And so we're thinking, oh, so-and-so is great at this, so-and-so is great at this. And so if someone is interested in growth and they're interested in growing their leadership, it is not a burden to ask them to take on more responsibility. In fact, you are helping in that moment to raise their leadership, build their confidence. They see, oh, Whitney asked me to do X, Y, and Z. Jordan asked me to do X, Y, and Z. They must have belief in me, right? If they're giving or asking me to take on that responsibility. And so sometimes I have control issues too. For a long time, I didn't ask anyone to help me do anything because I thought it had to be done by me. Content creation, all the things, I felt like it had to come directly from me. And I was exhausted. And it's just like the body of Christ. We are not meant to do this on our own. We are meant to be a group, right? That has different skill sets and different strengths. And the beauty of that, the most beautiful culture you can have, whether we're talking about you and your individual team or just like us right here, is using our different gifts and strengths to make us all stronger. And so I just want you to get that out of your mind, because a lot of people said it, burdening someone by asking them to rise up, because that is what helps them grow.
I have an example I want to share here, Jordan.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, and it doesn't even have to be someone necessarily that is a leader, because I had an experience with this where I have someone on my team that's, the people that just hang out for the community, and they're just like, you can tell that that's what they really want, but they keep showing up. So someone was gifted in making graphics, and I felt like, I don't know, I wanted to ask her to create some graphics for a Facebook group that I wanted to create. And I thought, you know, is there any way you could do this? It would be so amazing. It would bless us. Like, you're so good at it. And she was so excited that I asked her, and she felt so honored. And she thanked me afterwards. She was like, thank you for recognizing that strength in me and allowing me to bless our team. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be in leadership, but just a task, you know. And there's a lot of people that would love to just feel like they're serving by using a strength that they have, even if it's not necessarily in training or leading a call or something.
That's good.
Tamara, can I ask something about that like burdening thing? Because that's what I struggle with. I don't really struggle with the like control. I mean, Emily does like so much for our teams, but with the control thing. But for me, I struggle with asking leaders to do things because they already maybe like are feeling overwhelmed, or they don't have like, they're not doing their IPA consistently. So I'm like, why would I give you a task to spend your time on, and then you're not going to do your IPA? I'd rather you use your time to do your IPA. Does that, like, I think that's my hang up. Does that make sense?
As in, like, why would you ask them to do something in leadership if they're not even doing like the basics?
Yes, exactly. Like, I have girls on my, like, there's this girl on my team that like loves to run events and does awesome. And she did this 21 hard for us, and she did so great. But then she like didn't do any of her IPA all month long. And it was like, I'd rather you use your time to do that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, my first thought, and I'm sure different people have different suggestions, but my very first thought was, when you're asking someone to do something like that, like in their strength zone, but you're having that burden of like, oh, is that going to take them away from their personal business? I would almost think of it as like a question. Like, you are so gifted at doing these events. Like, I have never seen one done as well as the one you did. Like, man, you're gifted. And I feel like that's something that you need to keep doing over and over again because it's in your natural strength zone. That said, Sarah, I do not want to take you away from like your personal business. And so do you think it's possible, you know, for you also to be doing your IPAs on the daily or 5 days out of the week and also run this event in your strength zone? Because I don't want to take you away from these income producing activities because I want you to continue to grow your personal business. And I think the events you're doing can totally be a part of that, but almost like, Liz, like a contract. Like, here's what I see your strengths in, and I want you to continue that, but I don't want to pull you away from these other things that truly matter for your personal business. Just so it's like an openness and an awareness. Am I explaining that well?
Yes,
Yes.
totally. That's,
I have an
super
example on this.
Yeah.
Like, I have a team member who struggles to consistently do her IPA and is very gifted in graphic design. So totally similar to this topic. And when I pick and choose, asking her to help with graphics for things that I feel like she can, either goals she can hit or events that she can personally utilize. Like, I asked her to design the recognition graphic for those who earned winner's dinner last year. And I knew she was close to earning it, but it was totally take it or leave. She was either going to opt out and not even try, or try to earn it. And being asked to design that graphic for all the other earners, like, really lit a fire, and she worked really hard and earned it. And like, we did like an ease active slim challenge, and we asked her to design the graphics for that. And again, like, you know how your whole team doesn't always take advantage of everything you offer. So that was a great reason to get her involved in that event and get her marketing it and adding people to it. So I kind of pick and choose like that. I say, oh, and this too, like, when I ask team members to help out in some way, I always say, okay, here's what's involved in this role. And I'll do 3 bullet points. And the first bullet point will always be participate in this challenge and invite your team. And then bullet point 2, design the graphics for this challenge, or whatever, you know, like, I'll say, this is what that role involves. Yeah.
That's good. And as y'all are saying in the comments, it's so true. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that a lot of times we may not have that interior motivation in our business, but when we get into any form of activity, the other motivations grow. And so getting them involved in something in their strength zone could offshoot motivation in other areas. for sure. I've seen that happen over and over again.
Yeah,
just
and
Whitney, I love
Liz-
what you said.
oh, go
No,
ahead.
sorry. No, go ahead. I was just going to read what she said in the comments. That's really good. It loops them back in to the community, or it motivates them to get back to work. It's really good.
The community part is exactly where I was going with this next part, because community is so important. And when people don't feel part of a community, they do not feel like they add value in any way. And they just feel so disconnected. And so Liz, in my, like, something that I was thinking of is like, okay, that's when I'm like, okay, hey, when can we get on a 30-minute Zoom together? You are incredible at doing this, and I want to do this part with you. Can we do it together? And then I start celebrating the wins that they're getting on our Zoom. So-and-so just sent a scary message to a dream teamer. So-and-so just made a post that she's been avoiding for like weeks, and it's getting so much attention. And so that's when I start celebrating them and their activity that we want to encourage more of. And so that's what I do. Okay. Anybody else have anything on that topic right there? I heard several times on this call, graphic making and doing leading trainings. But y'all, there are so many other ways that we can rise up our leaders. There's so many different ways. And so I would love for y'all to, if y'all don't mind, just because I think for hearing from other people how they like their strength and what they do to live in that strength will give y'all some ideas of how you can be looking for these things in your team. And I would actually love to hear it too, because I stumble on this. I don't always know in what way can I rise them up. And so can we end with this? I would love to hear from you guys. What is a strength you have, and how are you using it to really feel excited in your business? So there you go. I want to know. Tell me. I will tell y'all a strength of mine, and then y'all can go. So something that I think I'm really, really good at is I watch a ton of YouTube videos. Like, I'm a walking YouTube training leadership 4-pillar video. So something I feel like I am really good at is when someone asks a question, I typically don't answer it. I have a video for that, most likely in my vault. And so that is a strength of mine. I have taught leaders to go find the answers on their own, because I can share tools with them to go do that. And so that is a strength that I have. What about you guys? How else? And so how might that look for our team? Well, if I know somebody has that strength, I can tag them when someone asks a question in our Silvers thread and be like, hey, Brittany, I know you have a good video for this question she just asked. Can you share it with us? What video would you suggest to answer her question, right? So like, that's a way that I can get Brittany and her gift involved, helping other people, building a community in the process, right? So what is the strength you have, and then how can you apply it? I want to know. I'm going to mute myself. And I'm going to call out Chandler here in a minute, because I know her strength of fun and I know how she uses it, and it's way different than mine. So after, if no one is talking, then Chandler, you're up.
Okay, I'll share. And I never really know how to word this. But I feel like a strength in mine, and I use it in Plexus, but it's not necessarily Plexus related, is I just feel like I am really gifted in building genuine relationships with people. And I just feel like it's at like a whole different level. And so I feel like because of that, and because of how much time I invest into my team, into their personal life, like not just Plexus, I have found that when people on my team are going through a really hard season, or they really need to get down into the nitty gritty, hard emotional stuff that's holding them back in their business, I'm like fully capable to go dive in, like into that with them. Like, I have that capacity to take on that with my people. And I just feel like it creates a lot of trust, because they know that I have like a genuine, not concern, but like a genuine, care about them outside of their business. So I feel like that's something, and I feel like I have done that not only in my team, but like throughout Jordan's entire team. Like, I think I've been able to really do that well, in my business. So that's fine.
I'm going to tell y'all how that looks for her. Okay. What Taylor does is she sees someone having a problem and she will go message them and be like, hey, I feel that. How, like, do you want to talk about it? Can I pray for you over that? Like, Taylor is really good about feeling confident enough to go have those conversations. And that is how she lives in her gifts. And when she's doing that, she feels very, very fulfilled in her business.
It's really good. I want to piggyback on something Carissa typed in, because I've seen this play out in her business for years. She is very gifted with words. And so, for example, if she is hosting a event where there's going to be testimonies, not only will she tell her team, invite, she gives numerous examples of how to do that. And so I think it's just a beautiful thing, because you may have someone who's not really gifted at words. And so their invites may come across salesy or impersonal, but she offers them something to take and make their own. And it helps a lot of people. And so I just wanted to praise you in that, Carissa, because I've seen you continually do that for years. And I love that about you.
Thank you. I just thought of another example. It comes in so much with duplication, because when somebody tells me how they're doing on their first few days, that little tip of saying, oh my gosh, Fran, you should share that. And I literally write the post right then. That is a gift. It takes me no time. I have team members who it takes them an hour to write a post. And it takes me no time to write a post. So yeah, that's another way it comes in.
Yeah.
And like, let's say you have a teammate that does that, because all this stuff is awesome, but it only is effective when we're duplicating that down and we're like using this to rise others up, right? So like, say, Chris, you have a teammate that does that. That's when you're like, when somebody pops in a chat and says, hey, y'all, what do y'all do for first post? And that's when I tag Carissa and say, Carissa, you are really good at this. Can you share what you do? And so like, and there's so much community that's built when we do that. And Whitney Ward mentioned that she's really good at doing like putting words together for reach outs and stuff. You know how that plays out, y'all? You have somebody who's a Whitney, you say, hey, Whitney, you are really good at this. We need end of the month power half hours. Would you lead one? And I know she's good at it because I used to do her power half hours when I was like gold and senior gold. And that's how I learned to do them.
I just love this so much. Like, just even hearing how different people have been inspired by different leaders, it seriously brings me like such joy. It's such a beautiful thing. And one thing I want to say really quick is that when you see strengths in people, when you see things that they are naturally gifted in, tell them. I had a conversation with someone at my Camp Well that I just got back from Colorado. And she said to me, I noticed, Tamara, how when you see something in someone, you speak it out. And I love that because I just think it. And so I encouraged her. I said, whatever you're thinking about someone, say it, because they may not be aware of that gift. They may not be aware of that strength. And for you to call it out, it's like you're speaking life over them. And so I want you, my homework to you is I want you to think of 3 to 5 of your people that you can go to and say, I may not have ever shared this with you before, but here is what I see in you, because I can promise you those words will build confidence. They will build belief. I'm sure you've all experienced it from somebody before, right? They've called something out in you that really resonated. And maybe for the first time they go, I did not realize that I had that, or I did not realize that that amazing leader sees that in me. It's so life-giving, guys. So I want you to do that. 3 to 5 people. I want you to message them, call them, whatever it is, and share with them what you see in them.
Can I share an example of how I did that this morning?
Yeah.
I was not planning on doing this, but I'll play this and then we can totally be done, because I know y'all all have lots of things to do and kids to be with and all the things. So this morning, as I was re-listening to these podcasts, I was like, okay, who do I need to go call out a strength that they have that they do not even know that they have it, most likely? So there's a girl on my team. Her name is Sarah. Anyway, I'm gonna play this. If y'all can hear this, will y'all just like nod your head? I'm gonna play a voice message I sent to a teammate. Don't judge me, okay? If you think what I said is funny, it's fine. But
hey, if you want me to leave you alone about Plexus stuff, I totally will. But I have had Silver's earn this treatment coming up. And so if that's something you want, I want to help you do it because you are such a natural encourager. You are such a natural little like energy fire starter. And everybody saw it. Like the moment you started your business, when you were excited, like everybody felt it. Everybody was looking at you who was Sarah. And so I know how to help you get that now. So if that is something you want help with, I want to help you. If you don't, it's totally okay. There's no pressure. We are friends, whether or not you think like this or not. But when it comes to what I know you're capable of, I don't think you know you're capable of. Just push it a little bit because.
Oh, I stopped it for the end. But anyway, that was my when I listened to this, my inspiration was to go do what Tamara just said. So that's how I did it. If you're needing ideas on how to go about doing that.
Love that.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for today, unless you have anything else, Tamara.
I just want y'all, if you're going to involve your teams in this, I want you to go buy this book. Starts May 5th. We will get up all the information later today or by tomorrow, I promise, so that you can start blasting it everywhere. But go ahead and start telling your leaders to save that date.
Okay. Thanks for coming, guys.